Choice. It's a wonderful thing. Sometimes it's an easy choice. Sometimes you have no choice. Happily, JSE Safex style options give you a perfect choice, giving you the right, but not the obligation, to buy or sell stocks at an agreed price on or before an expiration date. Or you can just walk away. JSE Safex style options, a great choice.
Hello and welcome to Wealth and Wisdom, a brand new show on Summit TV that's all about how you can use the wisdom and insight gained over years of market experience to preserve your family's wealth and to even enhance it going into the future. Tonight, my guest is Simon Brown of Just One Lap, who's going to be talking to us a little bit about Libor, the big scandal that's been going on in the UK with Barclays involved and possibly quite a few other banks, and we're going to be finding out more about what's been going on in the UK. So, Simon, tonight we're going to be talking about Libor. It's just been in the news all the time, 24/7, all the financial media. We're really quite interested in Libor. So what is Libor?
It's an interesting point. And I mean, let's be honest, 6 months ago, no one knew, no one heard about it. I remember during the crisis, I remember people talking about Libor and the like, and most people would like, well, what is this Libor thing? And we've got an equivalent one in South Africa. We can touch on that in a bit. It's London Interbank Offer Rate. In other words, it's the level at which banks would, if they needed, have to pay to borrow money. So if they needed to borrow money over the short term, what interest rate would they pay if they needed to borrow that money? And then they get an average, and we can delve into that, and it's done by Thomson Reuters. And then that ultimate number that comes out then actually becomes critically important, because a lot of contracts and the like, I mean, if you're SAB Miller and you domicile in London and you want to do a large loan, you might use the Libor rate as your underpinning and say, I will pay Libor plus X percentage or something like that. So it starts off as, what are your banks going to, what are they expecting to have to pay to borrow money for a short duration?
Now, the fascinating number I heard bandied about, about Libor, is that there could be as many as $500 trillion of derivatives written on Libor. I mean, that is just, it's an astronomical, scary, scary sum. I mean, it's huge numbers we're talking about. And everyone's interest rates sort of fluctuate. So some of the stories we've heard, I mean, it's shocking stuff. That one story we've read about is that the guy saying, thanks so much for helping me on the number this morning. I'll pop around after work with a bottle of Bollinger. I mean, it's amazing.
The most expensive bottle of Bollinger in the history of Bollinger, and this is not a cheap bottle anyway. And you're 100% right, that's just it. So we start off with this number, and there's 14 banks involved in it, and 16, that's right. And they spin out the high levels and the low levels, and they get to this number, which in essence is it's a meaningless number. And how does it impact us? $500 trillion is a number that I can't even begin to comprehend. I mean, it's a factor of 8 or 10 times bigger than our entire stock market. It's absolutely
big number.
It's a giant one, and it's things you mentioned, the derivatives. So, for example, Black Scholes, one of the inputs is an interest rate. Now they would potentially put it in there. Now, if this interest rate is if there's a variance in that interest rate on the upside or the downside,
to everything else. I mean, it's because you use interest rates in any financial product. Now, the big story that's been going on is Barclays. Barclays have been accused of colluding and influencing the rate in a manner that wasn't market related. So they were deliberately skewing the figures. Now, a lot of the reports we've seen sort of have really isolated Barclays, and there's been a big reshuffle at the top. I mean, first the chairman resigned, then he was reinstated and the CEO was forced to resign. Now, the CEO, Bob Diamond, had a sterling reputation around the world, well respected in financial communities. He'd done an amazing job of managing Barclays, especially through the crisis. They emerged really well. I mean, is it because we know now there's 16 banks that are involved in this? Do you think Barclays is sort of where it's going to stop, or are the other banks sort of also possibly going to be impacted by this?
I can't believe it's only Barclays. I mean, at the moment, that certainly is where the smoking gun is. They're certainly the first ones out, and certainly the flip side is we've heard a lot of theory, not only from commentators such as ourselves, but from institutions in the UK and in Europe, where they are investigating other banks. There were 16 banks, as you say. Was there one lone instigator? Almost certainly not. And I suppose the other question we've got to say is, perhaps, does it go even further back? back. I mean, we're talking 2008 when the Lehman's collapsed and the likes of the latter part of 2008. Is it possible that this went further back? And you've got to say, if they were so comfortable to do it in 2008, it almost as if it was a habit, which means that there's some other history to it.
It goes further back.
It goes further back, and there has to be more than just Barclays. I can't believe that of the 16, there's just one bank that's involved.
I mean, it's also the process by which they do it. I mean, they get the 16 numbers in, and then they strip out sort of more than half of them. They strip out the outliers, the sort of top 4, bottom 4. That means there are only 8 guys left who are being averaged. I mean, and that means, according to one guy's sort of back of a napkin sort of calculation, he reckons to consistently move it around, you'd probably need almost as many as 13 of the 16 submitters to be in on it on a regular basis. So exactly. I think from what we're hearing internationally, there could be more sort of scandals, prosecutions, issues going on.
Absolutely, and what's happened is Barclays have worked with regulators. In other words, they've turned evidence, and we've seen it all over the world. We saw it locally with our bread fixing story. The folks who come in early and cop a plea and say guilty, terribly sorry, here's our checkbook, how much, typically get fined a less lower fine. The guys who fight it are the ones who really.
So it's the first guys who get off lightly. The later guys get off with much bigger fines and more impact. So. We'll come right back to more on this and more on the local version of LIBOR, the JIBOR, the Johannesburg Interbank Agreed Rate, after the break.